say thank you to Steve for that beautiful reading. This reading reminds me so much of the eulogies that I've heard. And, in my line of work, I hear a lot of eulogies. I'm always surprised and touched by the beautiful things people talk about and have to say about their loved ones at a funeral. Now, usually people focus on the graces and the blessings, and they tread lightly on those challenges. But what always stands out is people's grief. The loss is just palpable. And if I am given the blessing to walk through life with them after the funeral, I noticed that first year is particularly hard. Each time they hit a new part of the year or milestone, people feel grief afresh. Holidays, birthdays, vacations, first times. I mean, it remains hard after that too, but walking through those first times, well, it's a shock to the system.
Elisabeth Kubler-Ross helped give us words to explain what we were going through. We often think of grief as just sadness, but it's really more complicated than that. There are a lot more feelings. Her stages of grief included denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then finally acceptance. Except that grief is not linear like that. We don't advance from one stage to the next. It isn't even really circular. It's more like a messy scribble where we move from stage to stage all sorts of willy-nilly.
And acceptance isn't always easy to recognize. It's not like we wake up one day and think, I've hit acceptance. It sort of sneaks in slowly and it takes up more space. And of course, grief isn't limited to just death. It's part of all of the losses we have. Loss of a friendship or a relationship, learning that a loved one or we ourselves have a significant illness, even our children growing up. A little grief in that. And in some ways, they're tougher griefs because they're mingled with this sort of uncertainty. It leaves us with questions like, is this real? What is safe? What has changed? Will things return to the way they've been, or will there be a new normal? Since early in this pandemic, I've been thinking a lot about the grief of COVID. With no clear answers, but with people and activities we love being taken away from us, well, it's dizzying and exhausting.
We are grieving significant losses. Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the over 200,000 American lives lost to COVID, as well as knowing many who may never fully recover.
We grieve the loss of these lives. We grieve for their loved ones. We grieve for what these losses say about us as a people, and we react with denial, sadness, anger, bargaining. There are losses that are smaller. So we don't complain, but they're real and we're impacted by them. They hit our lives hard.
The weddings, funerals, birthdays, graduations we've missed out on, family dinners and getting ready for school. I miss this lady. I miss her, and I miss the ritual of self-care, of letting someone else do for me.
So where does this leave us as a people of faith? Well, I think that we begin with prayer. We ask God for the grace to recognize that when our denial, sadness, anger, bargaining behaviors and feelings come out, it's really grief in action. And we ask for the wisdom not to take them out on others. We remember that ours is a God and a godly people of forgiveness, that God's love for us is unconditional, and that when we mess up, because we will mess up, especially while we're grieving, we're given every opportunity to reconcile.
But finally, we remember the passage from today. And being found in human form, he humbled himself and became obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross. Therefore God also highly exalted him.
Our grief is not the end of the conversation. God takes our grief and our loss and helps us to build something new. Something that brings meaning into our lives, something that helps us be connected to the blessings that we once had, but also help us look towards the future.
For it is God who is at work within you, enabling you both to will and to work for his good pleasure.
My friends, we do grieve, and it's important to recognize that grief, and we are not alone. We have the blessing of the community of the faithful, and we have a God who is always working in us, working for us, working with us, building the kingdom of God here on earth.